I can think of several factors in my early life that drove me toward reporting and writing. And one was that I grew up in total isolation on a small farm in western Pennsylvania, in an area that for most people what would resonate would be to say that it looks like West Virginia, what they're used to thinking of as the hollows of West Virginia. Not another house in sight, no people in sight. And I was an only child. And it sounds crazy, but television was crucial when I look back. Because we didn't have anybody around, television sort of introduced me to the world. And I can it was very lonely out there, and I can remember thinking, someday I want to be where those people are. Not meaning lively world, but just a world where there were other people. And my mother believed in not having friends, and so there was never anyone visiting, anything like that. And the first thing I needed to learn was how to think before I learned to write, or to even think of telling stories. I grew up in a fundamentalist, rural Christian atmosphere, as I said, very closed off, but also truly not thinking. And life was a series of packages that you accepted and went along with those assumptions. And you were supposed to obey them, pass them on. And the first time I remember thinking was that I had a gay friend. We didn't use that word then. And I was a sophomore in college, Grove City College, became even more right-wing Christian college. And I made the mistake of telling my parents that this friend was gay. And my parents tried to get me kicked out of college. They tried to get the man kicked out of Pittsburgh Seminary, where he was by that time. And then my dad made a demand on me one day that I would promise him that if I was ever going down the street and I saw this man, that I would hate him so much that I would cross the street and that I would never speak to him again. And I can remember just thinking, whoa, there's something wrong here. And I refused to give him that promise. And so that was the first time that I remember making a decision that required me to go against that package that I was given. So that was very, very important to me. I did graduate from Grove City, and my father had died while I was in school, so I went home with the idea that I would work part-time as a substitute teacher for that extra semester until my mother got back on her feet. And then I was going to teach history in Pittsburgh as of the following fall. And I happened to get the idea that substitute teaching might not be a very consuming thing that spring. And I was walking by the Tribune Democrat in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, when I got that idea. And I walked in and said, I just graduated from college, and I'm wondering if I could get a job here as a filing clerk from now until August. And they said, well, if you just graduated from college, maybe you should go upstairs to the newsroom and talk to the people. And my students years later, when they had such a hard time getting jobs, always hated this story. But what happened was that this newspaper, the Tribune Democrat, had a policy of always hiring one woman reporter. And they had just lost their one woman reporter. And they hired me on the spot with no preparation. It was not a very good newspaper, but the editors were very good at teaching you to focus and to make judgment about what was important and to develop clarity. So I'll be forever grateful for that. But something else happened alongside that that was extremely important. And that was that down the street from the Tribune-Democrat in Johnstown was a little bookstore. I think it was called the Sunshine Bookstore. And my workday started at 5, and I developed the habit of going to Johnstown most days at 4 so I could hang out in the bookstore. And I literally had not been a thinking and learning person in college. I was a memorizer. Many of my professors were retired Presbyterian ministers who literally read their lectures with the punctuation marks included. There was a man, and I checked out his name years later as I was writing the acknowledgments to the burglar because he was so important. His name was Arthur Hagedis, and he had run this store. It was hit for the whole time it existed. And I guess he must have spotted the fact that I didn't know quite what I was doing. And he started asking me questions about what I wanted to read. And it was astounding to me now to realize it was 1964, and in my closed world of no newspapers at home, there I was working for a newspaper, I didn't know about what was happening in the South. I didn't know about freedom rides. I didn't know about the civil rights movement. And he started guiding me, and pretty soon I was consuming books on race and the Holocaust, which also was new to me. And I was simultaneously reading James Baldwin and Elie Wiesel. And that's when I started to be a thinking person. And I always feel that I really owe my education that was continuous, beginning at that point, to that bookstore owner, Arthur Hagedis. It just really was so crucial.